We all know the names: Moses, the lawgiver; David, the giant slayer. Their stories are legendary, carved into the very stone of history and faith. They're the titans, the headliners, the figures whose epic lives define our understanding of the biblical story. But what if I told you that some of the most crucial moments in the Bible were shaped by heroes you've never heard of? Overlooked figures whose quiet courage and incredible wisdom secretly changed the course of history. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the forgotten men and women who prove you don't need the spotlight to change the world. These aren't the stories you hear in Sunday school. They're the whispers in the margins, the footnotes of faith. And they reveal a profound truth. Sometimes the greatest acts of heroism happen far from the limelight, performed by people who expected no credit, but whose impact was immeasurable. We're going to uncover the stories of strategists, advocates, and rescuers who operated behind the scenes, shaping events with a quiet word or a brave choice. And we're starting with the man who saved Moses from himself. The Bible heroes you've never heard of.
Jethro, the wise advisor. Moses. The name itself is monumental. He stood up to Pharaoh, parted the Red Sea, and received God's law on a mountain of fire and smoke. After the Exodus, he became the sole leader of millions, a new nation of freed slaves trying to survive in the unforgiving desert. The responsibility was crushing, and it was right here, in the wilderness, that Moses faced a crisis that no plague or army could solve: complete and utter burnout. Exodus chapter 18 paints a vivid picture. From morning till night, Moses sat as the single point of contact for every dispute, every question, and every legal matter in the entire nation of Israel. A line of people stretched out before his tent, waiting for his judgment. Just imagine the scene. Two neighbors arguing over a goat, a family debating an inheritance, someone seeking guidance on a point of faith, and every single case, no matter how small, landed on Moses' desk. The people were exhausted from waiting, and Moses himself was being worn down to nothing. This is where our first hidden hero enters the story. His name is Jethro. He's mostly known as Moses' father-in-law, a footnote in the great leader's biography. But Jethro was more than just family. He was a priest of Midian, a man of wisdom and experience from an entirely different culture. When he visited the Israelite camp, he didn't just see a powerful leader. He saw a man on the verge of collapse. With the clear vision of an outsider, Jethro watched the endless parade of disputes and gave a stunningly direct critique. He told Moses, "What you are doing is not good." That's a bold thing to say to God's chosen prophet. He explained that both Moses and the people would surely wear yourselves out, because the work was too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. This moment is a game changer. It's a masterclass in leadership, delivered in the middle of the desert. Jethro didn't just point out the problem. He offered a brilliant, practical solution. He advised Moses to create a system of delegation. He said to select capable, trustworthy men who feared God and hated corruption, and appoint them as officials over groups of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and tens. These men would act as judges for the everyday cases, settling the simple disputes. Only the most difficult and critical cases would be brought to Moses. This would free him up to focus on his most important job, being the people's representative before God and teaching them his laws. In an incredible act of humility, Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He set up a hierarchical judicial system, the first of its kind for Israel. This wasn't just a quick fix for a tired leader. Jethro's advice laid the very foundation for Israel's government and legal structure. A single conversation, a moment of wise counsel from an overlooked outsider, secretly shaped the organization of an entire nation. Jethro saw the problem that Moses, who was too deep in the weeds, couldn't see. And by speaking up, he ensured the long-term survival of the very community Moses was trying so desperately to lead. He's the patron saint of good advice and sustainable leadership.
Now, let's turn to another figure who used wisdom as a weapon, but in a situation that was far more desperate. She has no name. History only remembers her by her title, the wise woman of Abel, Beth, Maacah. Her story, tucked away in 2 Samuel chapter 20, is a high-stakes thriller of political rebellion, military siege, and the brilliant negotiation that saved her city from being wiped off the map. The backdrop is pure chaos. King David's kingdom had just survived a civil war started by his own son, Absalom. But before the dust could even settle, another rebellion flared up, this time led by a man named Sheba. This rebel leader rallied the northern tribes against David and holed up in the fortified city of Ebed-Melech. In response, David sent his ruthless and notoriously violent general, Joab, to crush the uprising. Joab wasn't exactly known for his patience. When he got to Abel-Melech, he didn't bother with messengers or calls for surrender. He immediately laid siege, building a ramp against the outer wall and telling his soldiers to start battering it down. The city's destruction was just moments away. The sounds of war, rams hitting stone, soldiers shouting, filled the air. Panic must have gripped the people inside. Their fate seemed sealed. And it's right at this moment, with the walls starting to crumble, that our hero emerges. From the top of the city wall, a single voice cuts through the noise. It's a woman, and she isn't screaming in terror. She is demanding to be heard. She calls out, "Listen, listen, tell Joab to come here so I can speak to him." This was an act of breathtaking courage. Joab's reaction is telling. He actually halts the attack and walks to the wall to listen. Some scholars suggest the title, Wise Woman, might have been a formal role, a recognized mediator in ancient Israel. The fact that Joab paused the assault shows he recognized her authority. What she says next is a masterclass in diplomacy. She doesn't beg for mercy. Instead, she challenges Joab with pure logic. She starts by reminding him of the city's reputation for wisdom, referencing an old saying. They used to say, "Let them inquire at Abel," and so they would settle a matter. She's essentially saying, "Hey, this city is famous for solving problems, not for being destroyed. You're attacking a landmark of Israeli wisdom." Then, she frames his actions not just as a military tactic, but as a spiritual crime. She declares that her people are among the peaceable and faithful in Israel, and then accuses him directly. "You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the Lord's inheritance?" That phrase, "a mother in Israel," was a powerful metaphor. It positioned the city not as a fortress, but as a nurturing, life-giving heart of the nation. By attacking it, Joab wasn't just putting down a rebellion, he was destroying a piece of Israel's very soul. Her words completely disarm the hardened general. Joab, who almost never backed down, gets defensive. "Far be it from me," he exclaims. "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy." He explains his only target is the rebel Sheba. He makes an offer. "Hand over this one man, and I will withdraw from the city." The wise woman sees her opening and takes it. She simply says, "His head will be thrown to you from the wall." She goes back to her people, not with a plea, but with wise advice, persuading them that sacrificing one traitor to save thousands is the only way. The people agree, they execute Sheba, and they toss his head over the wall. True to his word, Joab sounds the trumpet, his army leaves, and the city is saved. An entire city, destined for rubble, was saved because one unnamed woman had the courage to speak up and the wisdom to know exactly what to say. She didn't use a sword. Her weapons were logic, tradition, and a deep understanding of what makes people tick. She remains one of the most powerful and most invisible political heroes in the entire Bible.
And we're just getting started with these incredible, overlooked figures. If you're finding these hidden stories as fascinating as I do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're new here and love uncovering the deeper, forgotten stories from history and scripture, consider subscribing. Your support helps bring more of these invisible stories into the light. Now, let's get to a hero whose bravery came through a courageous act of compassion that defied a king.
Our next hero operated in the final, desperate days of the kingdom of Judah. His name was Ebed-Melech, and his story is in Jeremiah chapter 38. His name literally means servant of the king, and that's what he was, an official in the court of King Zedekiah. But the text gives us one more crucial detail. He was an Ethiopian, a foreigner, and a eunuch. In the rigid social structure of ancient Jerusalem, he was an outsider in every sense. He had a position of some authority but lacked the social standing of the native-born princes who surrounded the king. The setting is a city on the brink of collapse. The Babylonian army had laid siege to Jerusalem, and starvation was everywhere. Inside the walls, the prophet Jeremiah was delivering a deeply unpopular message from God: surrender. He warned that fighting the Babylonians was pointless and the only way to survive was to give up. This message was seen as treason. A group of powerful princes went to King Zedekiah, accusing Jeremiah of destroying the morale of the soldiers and the people. They demanded he be executed. The king, a weak and indecisive ruler, caved. He told them, "He is in your hands. The king can do nothing to oppose you." With the king's blessing, these officials threw Jeremiah into a cistern. But this pit wasn't filled with water. Its bottom was a deep layer of thick, suffocating mud. Jeremiah sank into the mire, left to die a slow, miserable death from starvation and exposure. No one said a word. The princes were happy, the king was silent, and the prophet of God was left to perish. This is where Ebed-Melech steps out of the shadows. When he heard what had happened, he didn't stay quiet. He took an enormous risk. He went and found King Zedekiah sitting in a public area, the Gate of Benjamin, and confronted him in front of everyone. For an Ethiopian eunuch to publicly challenge the actions of powerful Judean princes was an act of incredible bravery. He could have been fired, imprisoned, or worse, but his conscience wouldn't let him stay silent. He spoke truth to power, saying, "My lord the king, these men have acted wickedly. They have thrown Jeremiah into the cistern, where he will starve to death." His appeal was direct, bold, and morally clear. And amazingly, it worked. Perhaps Ebed-Melech's sheer courage shamed the king into action. Zedekiah ordered him to take 30 men and rescue Jeremiah before he died. But Ebed-Melech's heroism didn't stop there. What he did next shows a profound and tender compassion. He didn't just grab some ropes. He went to a storeroom and gathered old, soft rags and worn-out clothes. He lowered the rags down with the ropes and told Jeremiah to place the soft cloths under his armpits to cushion him from the ropes, preventing injury to his weakened body. Only then did they carefully pull Jeremiah up from the mire. That small detail about the rags is what makes this story so powerful. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a rescue done with empathy. He thought not only of saving Jeremiah's life, but of doing it in the kindest way possible. In a city full of powerful men who chose cruelty and cowardice, it was the foreign outsider who demonstrated true courage. And his story doesn't end there. In the next chapter, as Jerusalem falls just as Jeremiah had prophesied, God sends a personal message directly to Ebed-Melech. He promises that while the city will be destroyed, Ebed-Melech's own life will be spared. God tells him, "I will rescue you because you trusted in me." Ebed-Melech's quiet act of compassion did not go unnoticed. He is the hero who teaches us that your title, your nationality, and your social standing mean nothing compared to the integrity of your heart.
The heroes we've talked about so far saved prophets and cities. But our next heroes fought a different kind of battle. A battle for justice, identity, and the rights of the powerless. They were 5 sisters: Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. Together, they're known as the Daughters of Zelophehad, and their story in Numbers chapter 27 is a revolutionary legal drama that forever changed Israel's laws. The scene is the plains of Moab, right before the Israelites are about to enter the Promised Land. Moses is taking a census to figure out how the land will be divided among the tribes. The rule for inheritance was simple and patriarchal. Land was passed down from a father to his sons. This kept property and the family name within the clan. But these 5 sisters had a problem. Their father had died in the wilderness, and he had no sons. According to the law, this meant their family line was about to be erased. Their father's name would vanish, and they would be left with no property, no inheritance, and no economic security. In a society where women had few, if any, public rights, the expected response was silent acceptance. But these 5 women refused to be invisible. They refused to let their father's legacy be erased. Together, they did something absolutely unprecedented. They marched to the center of power.
the entrance to the tent of meeting. And there they stood before Moses, the priest, and all the leaders of the entire assembly. It was the equivalent of walking into the nation's Supreme Court and demanding to be heard. Their legal argument was both respectful and brilliant. First, they pointed out that their father wasn't a traitor or a rebel. He had died of natural causes. Then they posed a powerful, heart-wrenching question. Why should our father's name disappear from his clan because he had no son? It was a question that appealed not just to law but to justice and memory. They finished with a clear, bold request. Give us property among our father's relatives. This had never happened before. The law had no answer for this. Moses himself didn't know what to do. So the text says, Moses brought their case before the Lord. And God's response was swift and decisive. He said to Moses, "What Zelophehad's daughters are saying is right. You must certainly give them property, and give their father's inheritance to them." God ruled in their favor. But it didn't stop there. Their courageous stand didn't just win their own case. It created a new law for the entire nation. God commanded Moses to amend the inheritance laws. From that day forward, if a man died with no son, his inheritance would pass to his daughter. Because 5 women dared to speak up, the legal rights of women in Israel were expanded and protected. They saw an injustice in the system, and instead of accepting it, they challenged it at the highest level. Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah weren't just heiresses. They were activists and legal pioneers who won a battle that secured dignity for countless women who came after them.
Our final hero offers a different kind of courage. Not the courage of a battlefield or a courtroom, but the quiet, steadfast courage of loyalty. His name is Onisephorus, which means help bringer, and he absolutely lived up to his name. His story is a brief but incredibly moving shout-out in Paul's final letter, 2 Timothy. To get the weight of this story, you have to understand the darkness of Paul's situation. When he wrote this letter, he wasn't a pioneering missionary anymore. He was a prisoner in Rome, likely in the cold, grim Mamertine prison, waiting to be executed. This was a time of not just physical hardship, but profound abandonment. In one of the saddest lines in the New Testament, Paul writes, "You know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me." Just imagine that. After dedicating his life to that region, the very people and churches he had founded had turned their backs on him. Being associated with Paul, a condemned prisoner of Rome, was dangerous. It brought shame and risk. So many of his former friends chose to save themselves rather than stand by him. But then Paul speaks of one man who was different, Onisephorus. Paul writes a prayer for his family. "May the Lord show mercy to the household of Onisephorus, because he often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chains." That one phrase, "not ashamed of my chains," is everything. While others were running from Paul, Onisephorus ran toward him. When he got to Rome, he didn't just send his well wishes from a safe distance. Paul says that Onisephorus searched hard for me until he found me. Think about what that actually meant. Rome was a massive, chaotic city. Finding one specific prisoner in its sprawling, dangerous prison system would have been a nightmare. It would have meant knocking on doors, bribing guards, and risking being identified as an associate of a state criminal. But Onisephorus was determined. He searched and searched until he found his friend. And when he found him, he often refreshed him. This wasn't a one-time visit. The word suggests he came back again and again, bringing food, news, and most importantly, the comfort of friendship to a lonely, abandoned man. Onisephorus was a lifeline. He risked his own safety to bring comfort to a friend in his darkest hour. Paul's prayer for him is deeply personal. He asks for mercy for Onisephorus' family and then adds, "May the Lord grant that he will find mercy from the Lord on that day." It's a prayer overflowing with gratitude for a man whose loyalty shines so brightly against the backdrop of betrayal. Onisephorus is the hero of friendship. He represents the profound power of showing up when everyone else has walked away. His story is just a few verses, but it teaches us that one of the most heroic things you can ever do is be a faithful friend in a faithless world.
Jethro, the wise advisor, the unnamed woman of Abel, Ebed-Melech, the compassionate rescuer, the 5 trailblazing daughters of Zelophehad, and Onisephorus, the unashamed friend. Their stories aren't epics. There are no parted seas or slain giants. They are quiet stories of wisdom, courage, justice, and loyalty. They are stories of people who saw a problem, a leader burning out, a city under siege, a prophet left to die, an unjust law, a friend abandoned, and they chose to act. They prove you don't need to be famous to be faithful. The Bible is filled with these invisible heroes, reminding us that God's work is often carried forward not by the titans of history, but by ordinary people who do extraordinary things when no one is watching. Their lives challenge our culture's obsession with fame and recognition. They show us a different kind of influence. The influence of a quiet word of advice, a brave plea for justice, a courageous act of compassion, and a loyal hand of friendship. Perhaps the greatest lesson here is that our own small, unseen acts of integrity and kindness matter more than we can ever imagine. We may feel that our contributions are invisible, but these stories encourage us to believe that quiet courage can change the world, and that faithful acts, done in obscurity, are never invisible to God. Which of these heroes' stories resonates with you the most? Is it the strategic wisdom of Jethro, the bold diplomacy of the wise woman, the daring compassion of Ebed-Melech, the justice-seeking courage of the 5 sisters, or the steadfast loyalty of Onisephorus? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear which story inspires you. Thank you for watching.